The boy with the bear hat, the human who never gives up, the one and only Finn Mertens. If you've followed Adventure Time for even a few episodes, you know that Finn's journey isn't just about battles, swords, or saving princesses. It's about growth. It's about finding purpose in a chaotic world. And it's about asking questions, big questions, even when the answers are anything but simple. When we first meet Finn, he's just a kid in a treehouse with a magical dog brother, chasing adventure and throwing punches at evil wherever it shows up. He's got a moral compass that points so strongly toward good that it sometimes gets him in trouble. But that's the beauty of Finn. He feels everything deeply. He doesn't just want to win. He wants to understand. And that's where the layers begin. See, Finn's destiny was never about becoming the strongest warrior in Who. It was always about becoming the wisest version of himself through heartbreak, through loss, and through some of the weirdest dream sequences you've ever seen in a cartoon. Let's rewind to one of the most philosophical episodes of the entire series, the Hall of Egress. Finn enters a mysterious, ancient temple and finds himself trapped in a loop, forced to walk through a door he can't open with his eyes. It's metaphorical, it's surreal, and it's deeply emotional. Finn tries again and again to escape, and every time he fails, we feel that frustration right along with him. But then something shifts. Finn lets go. He walks forward with trust eyes closed, calm, and suddenly, freedom. It's not just a puzzle, it's a lesson. To move forward in life, you sometimes have to stop trying to control everything. Sometimes you just have to surrender and take the step anyway. This moment, as strange as it sounds, represents a turning point in Finn's development. It's where his destiny begins to shift from external quests to inner exploration. It's no longer just about defeating villains. It's about learning who he is and what he's meant to become. Let's not forget how alone Finn is technically. He's the only full human in a world full of candy people, rainicorns, flame beings, and vampires. He doesn't have a human parent to guide him, but what he does have is heart. And that heart leads him to build relationships that fill in the blanks. Jake, BMO, Princess Bubblegum, Marceline, even Ice King in time. But even with friends, Finn wrestles with identity. Think about how often he searches for where he came from. When he finds out about his biological father, Martin, it's a gut punch. Martin isn't the hero Finn hoped for. He's selfish, cowardly, and absent. And instead of finding closure, Finn's left with more questions about what makes someone truly good. And that's when Finn starts to redefine family. Jake, who's always been by his side, becomes more than a brother. He's Finn's anchor, the one who helps him process emotions, even when he doesn't have the words for them. They fight, sure, but they grow together. And through Jake, Finn learns something subtle but powerful. Love isn't always perfect, but it's real. And real love is what shapes destiny more than fate ever could. As the seasons go on, Finn becomes more reflective. He doesn't just charge into battle anymore, he thinks. He wonders about the universe, about cycles, about the morality of fighting it all. His dreams get deeper, weirder, more symbolic. There's an episode where he lives an entire lifetime in another reality, growing old, falling in love, and dying only to wake up back in Uru, changed forever. How's that for a dream logic? By the time we reach the later episodes, Finn is no longer the boy who needed to prove himself. He's become someone who listens more, who's curious about why people act the way they do. And more importantly, he starts looking inward, facing the parts of himself that are messy, uncertain, or even afraid. And let's be real, isn't that what growing up actually feels like? And speaking of dreams, Finn's literal dreams start to reveal the kind of subconscious stuff you usually only find in deep late-night conversations or weirdly intense journal entries. There's that wild vision he has with the butterfly and king worm, where his mind morphs through surreal landscapes full of guilt, desire, fear, and love. It's like the inside of Finn's brain is trying to tell him something. And in a way, it's a reminder to us too. Even heroes get lost inside their own minds. Finn dreams of being a better person, of understanding people, of connecting. And the series never makes it easy for him. He's challenged over and over emotionally, spiritually, existentially, like when Flame Princess breaks his heart. That wasn't just cartoon drama. That moment was raw. Finn messes up. He tries to manipulate things. He crosses lines, and he has to face the consequences. And what does he do? He grows. He learns what it means to respect boundaries, to own up to mistakes, even when it hurts. That emotional maturity. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens the way it happens for all of us, slowly, painfully, and through a lot of self-reflection. And that's what makes Finn such a powerful character. He's not perfect. He's not invincible. But he cares deeply, and that caring is what drives his destiny forward. Now let's talk about reincarnation. Yeah, Adventure Time goes there. In The Vault, we find out Finn is the latest in a line of past lives, including a mystery woman named Shoko who had her own strange and tragic history in the Candy Kingdom. Finn's destiny isn't just tied to his current lifetime. It stretches backward and forward, through lives and timelines. And again, the show doesn't explain it with some flashy prophecy. It just lets it unfold. Finn's connection to the cycle of existence becomes more evident when you zoom out and look at how many times he dies, transforms, or gets trapped in alternate realities like Farm World Finn, who exists in a totally different timeline created by the Ice King's crown, or that moment in Puhoi, where Finn lives an entire life inside a pillow dimension, raises a family, becomes a wise old man, and then wakes up back in his normal world like nothing happened. It's not just weird cartoon logic, it's about the fluid nature of life, time, and the self. Finn isn't just one person in one place. He's a soul constantly evolving, constantly searching, and constantly becoming something more. And that evolution isn't just powered by magic or mystery, it's powered by choices. Now let's zoom in on his relationship with the world around him. Finn doesn't just want to be a good person. He wants to make the world better. From helping tiny towns escape oppressive rulers to calming down ancient forest spirits, Finn always tries to understand the why behind every conflict. He doesn't want to destroy things, he wants to fix them. And in later seasons, that leads to some really gentle, mature moments where he chooses not to fight. One of the most powerful examples, his relationship with Fern, a grass clone of himself created by the remnants of the grass sword and cursed with a distorted sense of identity. Fern thinks he's Finn. He wants to be Finn. But he also hates him. That entire arc could have been a basic hero versus villain fight. But it's not. It's layered, emotional. Finn doesn't want to destroy Fern, he wants to save him. That dynamic taps into one of the deepest parts of Finn's story, the struggle to understand who you are when there are parts of yourself you don't like. Fern is literally a mirror of all the confusion, anger, and darkness that Finn wrestles with internally. And instead of casting that part of himself aside, Finn learns to face it. In a way, Fern becomes a final test not of Finn's strength, but of his compassion. And by the end, even though Fern's story ends in tragedy, Finn honors him, gives him peace, and lets his memory live on in the form of a beautiful new tree. That's not just symbolic, it's destiny fulfilled. And if we're talking destiny, we have to talk about the finale. Finn stands at the heart of the ultimate conflict, caught between war and peace, chaos and balance. And what does he do? He refuses to let the world tear itself apart. He throws down his sword. He sings. He reminds everyone, even the villains, that connection and understanding are more powerful than violence. It's the most Finn thing ever. He's not the warrior people expected him to become. He's something more. He's the soul of Ooh, a dreamer, a thinker, a connector. His destiny was never about destruction. It was about harmony. And in the end, he chooses love. But Finn's story doesn't just end there. The final episodes leave his future open, peaceful, yes, but uncertain. And that's perfect. Because Finn's real destiny is to keep growing, keep asking questions, and keep dreaming. And maybe that's what makes Finn such a powerful anchor in the wild, unpredictable world of Adventure Time. He's not driven by prophecy or guided by some ancient chosen one narrative. He's a kid who chooses, again and again, to do the right thing even when it's hard, even when it doesn't make sense, even when no one else is watching. But let's pull back even more. Let's talk about what destiny even means in a world like Ooh. This is a land where time loops, where reality bends, where dreams spill over into waking life and ancient creatures remember the birth of the universe. And in the middle of all that chaos, war, magic, apocalypse, stands a human boy who never gives up. And so Finn is a thread of clarity in a tangle of surrealism. His destiny isn't about saving the world once and for all, it's about constantly choosing to care. In a world where people lose their minds, where entire kingdoms dissolve, where friends betray and return and disappear again, Finn remains grounded by empathy. And that's something we don't talk about enough, how much of Finn's strength comes from listening. By the later seasons, you really start to notice how he stops trying to fix things with force and starts trying to understand. He listens to Marceline's pain. He comforts Ice King without judgment. He even tries to find common ground with enemies like Lemongrab, who's more of a walking emotional breakdown than a villain. Finn's growth becomes less about how many monsters he defeats and more about how many souls he reaches. And that's where the dream part of his destiny shines the most, because Finn is, in so many ways, a dreamer. Not just in the sleeping sense, though those trippy, interdimensional visions definitely count, but in the sense that he believes in things getting better. He believes people can change. He believes that even in a post-apocalyptic wasteland, love still matters, the connection still matters. Finn dreams of being a hero. Then he dreams of being a better person. Then eventually he dreams of a better world. And that shift, that beautiful transformation, is his real journey, his real purpose. And hey, let's not ignore how often the universe responds to those dreams. Finn meets cosmic beings. He's tested by the embodiment of chaos. He travels through other dimensions. He interacts with Prismo, the cosmic owl, and even Death himself. These aren't just random events. These are responses. The universe leans toward Finn, nudges him, shapes him, not because he was born special, but because he became special. That's the magic of Finn. He isn't gifted greatness, he builds it. One awkward conversation, one weird adventure, one deeply felt emotion at a time. And even when he's not sure who he is, even when he's lost in alternate realities, or grieving a breakup, or wondering why things have to be so complicated, Finn keeps showing up. He keeps asking questions. He keeps learning. And more than anything, he keeps loving. Which brings us to something soft and beautiful. Finn's capacity for forgiveness. He forgives his dad, even though Martin doesn't deserve it. He forgives Ice King, even though Simon caused so much pain. He forgives Fern, even when Fern tries to destroy him. He even forgives himself slowly, quietly over time. And that's not weakness. That's strength. That's evolution. That's destiny. Because in the end, the thing that defines Finn's path isn't fate, isn't prophecy, isn't power, it's choice. Over and over, Finn chooses compassion. He chooses to get back up, to try again, to love harder. He chooses to believe in people, even when they give him every reason not to. And in a world as strange and broken as Ooh, that's the most heroic thing anyone can do. So yeah, Finn the human, hero, dreamer, forgiver, grown-up kid in a magical wasteland. His story isn't just epic, it's human. And it reminds us that destiny isn't something waiting for you at the end of the road. It's something you build with every step, especially the messy, complicated, emotional ones. And Finn, he never stops walking. Before the kingdoms rose, before the candy people walked, before even the word ooh meant anything at all, there was a man named Simon and a little girl named Marceline. And their story? It's not about magic or monsters or grand adventures. It's about survival. It's about memory. It's about what it means to love someone so deeply that you'd risk losing yourself just to keep them safe. Long before he became the Ice King, Simon Petrikov was a kind, eccentric antiquarian, a man of curiosity, of intellect, someone who loved the mysteries of the past. He had glasses too big for his face, a clumsy sort of charm, and a deep love for his fiancée, Betty. His life was quiet, academic, until it wasn't. It all changed the day Simon found the crown. You've heard of it, right? The magical, ancient crown that grants its wearer powerful ice abilities and slowly chips away at their sanity. Simon didn't know that at first. He just saw it as a strange artifact, something to study. But the more he wore it, the more it wore him. He began forgetting names, hearing voices, acting out of character. His mind started to slip. And it wasn't just sad, it was terrifying. He was aware of it. He knew he was changing. He started writing notes to himself, desperate to remember who he really was. One of those notes would eventually end up in the hands of Marceline. Now let's talk about her, Marceline Abadir, the little vampire queen, the rock star, the loner. But before she was all that, she was just a scared little girl living in the ruins of a broken world. The Mushroom War had turned everything upside down. Cities were leveled. Civilization was gone. Survivors were scattered, sick, afraid. And that's where their paths crossed. Simon found Marceline wandering through the wreckage, clutching a toy Hambo, looking for someone, anyone to hold on to. And Simone. He chose her. Not because he had to, not because she had any power or importance, but because she was alone, because she needed him, because it was the right thing to do. From that point on, it was the two of them against the world. He carried her when she was too tired to walk. He gave her soup when she was hungry. He tried to entertain her with silly voices and soft songs. But the most heartbreaking part? He was falling apart while doing it. The crown was corrupting him day by day, turning his thoughts into static, replacing his love with obsession. And yet he held on. For her. And the thing is, Marceline knew. Even as a kid, she saw the way Simon was changing. She saw the moments when his voice cracked, when his eyes glazed over, when he looked at her like he didn't know who she was. But she also saw the moments when he came back, when he sang her lullabies, when he held her tight, when he whispered her name like it was the only thing keeping him grounded. Their bond wasn't just about survival. It was about something sacred. That raw, desperate kind of love that refuses to let go even when everything else fades. In the flashback episode, I Remember You, we see just how deep that connection ran. Ice King, long after he's forgotten everything, unknowingly stumbles through fragments of Simon's past, singing pieces of songs, repeating words he doesn't understand. And Marceline, older now, more guarded, realizes that somewhere inside this strange, babbling wizard is the man who once saved her life. It's one of the most emotional gut punches in the entire series. Because even though the world has moved on, even though magic and kingdoms and weird candy people have taken over, Marceline never stopped mourning Simon. Not really. And Simon? Somewhere deep inside the storm of ice and madness, he never stopped loving her either. What makes Simon and Marceline's story so unique, even in a show filled with sentient candy, time-traveling owls, and magical vampires, is that it's deeply human. It's about memory and loss, and the terrifying idea that someone you love might vanish right in front of you, while still standing there. The bond they built in the aftermath of the Mushroom War was one forged in fire, literally. They navigated a scorched landscape, broken cities, and fallout zones with nothing but each other and a few scavenged supplies. But what they shared was more than a survival partnership. It was a makeshift family one that was real, tender, and achingly temporary. Simon knew his mind was unraveling, that every moment he spent using the crown's power to protect Marceline was also another nail in the coffin of his own identity. But he made that sacrifice anyway. He chose her over himself, again and again. In Simon Marcy, we're given a clearer picture of this. It's one of those rare episodes that pulls back the veil on the pre-Ooh world, and it's full of haunting beauty. We see Simon shielding Marceline from mutated monsters, giving her chicken soup from an old vending machine like it's treasure, singing I'm Just Your Problem in soft, wobbly tones long before it became Marceline's anthem of emotional frustration. There's this heart-shattering scene where Simon has to put on the crown to protect them from a lurking creature. As the ice powers surge through him, his voice deepens, his form twists, he turns into something terrifying. But right before he loses control, he tells Marceline to run. He warns her. Even in that moment of chaos, he's thinking about her. And little Marcy, she doesn't run. She stays. Because she knows somehow that the monster in front of her isn't really a monster. It's still Simon. And when it's over, when he comes back to himself and collapses into tears, she hugs him. Like a daughter would hug her father. Like someone who understands what love costs. It's that kind of moment that defines the soul of Adventure Time. Now, if you've followed Simon's arc into the later seasons and Adventure Time, Distant Lands, Obsidian, and Together Again, you know how long that tragedy lasts. For hundreds of years, Simon remains locked inside the Ice King's persona, a shell of the man he used to be. He acts bizarre, writes fan fiction, chases princesses. But underneath it all, fragments of Simon still linger. They come out in the songs, in the rituals, in the longing. And Marceline? She grows up. She becomes a powerful vampire, a fierce warrior, a complicated artist with layers of trauma that never really heal. But no matter how many centuries pass, she carries Simon's memory like a wound. Sometimes it's a scar. Sometimes it's still bleeding. That's why the episodes where they reconnect hit so hard. In Elements, and later in Come Along With Me, the show slowly begins to peel away the Ice King's madness and let Simon's true self return. And what do we find underneath all that frost? A tired man, a grieving man, A man who remembers everything and regrets it all. He remembers Marceline. He remembers what he did, what he became. And she's still there, waiting, forgiving, holding him, just like he once held her. The roles reversed, but the love unchanged. Their story becomes this haunting reversal of roles, the child who became the protector, and the guardian who became lost in time. And even when things begin to settle, even when Simon starts to recover, there's no perfect fix, no magic spell to make everything right. Because Adventure Time never promises easy resolutions, it promises growth, painful, messy, real growth. But maybe the most beautiful part of all this is how their bond endures, not as fairy tale or fate, but as choice. Over centuries, through magic and madness, Marceline and Simon choose to keep loving each other. Not romantically, not out of obligation, but as two people who saw each other at their worst and still held on. And in a world as weird and wild as that kind of love, that's rare. There's something quietly devastating about watching two characters love each other across time like this, through war, through madness, through lifetimes. Marceline and Simon's story isn't just a flashback or a side plot. It's the emotional backbone of Adventure Time's entire universe. It's where the surreal chaos of the land of suddenly feels eerily close to our own world, where loss, memory, and sacrifice feel deeply, painfully human. And yet, even after everything they endure, even after centuries apart, Marceline and Simon never lose each other entirely. When Adventure Time, distant lands, together again, and Obsidian came along, we got to see how the past never really leaves them. The scars are still there in the quiet way Marceline looks at him, in the silence that sometimes fills the space between their words. But what's even louder than the silence is the healing. There's a scene where Simon, fully Simon again, not Ice King, sits with Marceline and just talks. No magic, no monsters, just a conversation. It's a quiet kind of miracle, a moment where the ghosts don't win, where the past can finally gently rest. Because Simon isn't just a symbol of tragedy. He's also a symbol of survival, of what it means to break apart and still keep going, to be haunted and still show up. And Marceline, she's proof that love doesn't always need a grand finale. Sometimes just being there when it's hard is enough. And let's not forget what Simon taught Marceline. Not just how to survive, but how to feel, how to write music, how to stay soft in a hard world. His influence is all over her in her songs, in her humor, and the way she keeps people at arm's length until she knows they're real. You can feel him in the ache of her voice when she sings. You can see him in the way she forgives people who don't always deserve it. Simon didn't just save Marceline's life. He helped shape who she became, not through power or magic, but through simple human care. That's the kind of legacy that lasts longer than kingdoms. And in return, Marceline became the living memory of Simon. When the world forgot who he was, she remembered. When the crown swallowed his mind, she held onto his name. When the final spell broke and the Ice King was gone, Marceline was there to remind him that he mattered, that he still matters. Their relationship never needed a label. Not father and daughter, not guardian and child, just two souls whose paths collided at the end of the world and refused to let each other fall. That's why it hits so deeply, because it's not magic that binds them. It's love, quiet, enduring, painful love. And maybe that's what Adventure Time has always been quietly saying beneath the bright colors and silly jokes, that the things we carry from our past, the people who shaped us, the ones we saved or tried to, they stay with us, even when the world changes. even when we change. Simon and Marceline remind us that the past is never really gone, but it doesn't have to control us. It can be a wound, or a bridge, a shadow, or a guiding light. And in their case, it's both. So when you think of the land of Ooh with all its candy and chaos and magic, don't forget where it all began. With a man and a little girl walking through the ashes of a broken world, one slowly losing his mind, one trying to hold on to hers, both refusing to let go of the other. And that's more powerful than any spell. At first glance, the Candy Kingdom looks like a dream. Picture it. Candy-colored skies, smiling gumdrop citizens, cupcake guards, peppermint butlers. It's a sugar-coated utopia. But just under that pastel-perfect surface, things get weird. And not just Adventure Time weird, ethically weird. Because the truth is, the Candy Kingdom isn't just cute. It's complicated. And at the center of it all is one very pink ruler, Princess Bonnibel Bubblegum. Now, Bubblegum is one of the most fascinating characters in the Adventure Time universe. She's not just a princess. She's a ruler, a scientist, a bioengineer, and sometimes a mad genius. She created the Candy Kingdom, literally. She didn't just take over a land of sentient sweets. She made them, engineered them, gave them minds, gave them life. And right there, that's where things start to get a little morally sticky. See, the Candy people aren't just adorable citizens. They're Bubblegum's creations. She built them in her lab like little science projects, mixing sugar and magic and something suspiciously close to sentience. She's their leader, yes, but also their maker, their god. And that power, that kind of control, it raises some serious questions. Like, are the Candy people truly alive? Do they have free will, or are they just programmed to obey? We've seen episodes where Bubblegum overrides their behavior, rewires their brains, even resets them when they get out of line. She's reabsorbed them into her own body when they malfunction. That's not just ruling that's owning. That's treating living beings like software. And yet they love her. They adore her. They cheer for her. They follow her into battle. So is it real loyalty or artificial affection baked into their DNA? And that's the genius and the horror of Princess Bubblegum. She's not a villain. She genuinely cares about her people. She protects them, provides for them, builds their homes, and cures their illnesses. But the way she does it, often cold, often calculated, often without asking their opinion. It's utilitarianism at its finest, the greatest good, for the greatest number, even if it means sacrificing a few lives or reprogramming a few minds along the way. We see this tension play out most clearly in episodes like The Vault, Goliad, and The Cooler. In Goliad, Bubblegum creates a successor and immortal ruler designed to outlast her and govern the Candy Kingdom forever. But instead of building a council or educating the Candy people to think for themselves, she builds another creature, one who she can mold, one who will never question her authority. And guess what? It backfires horribly. Goliad quickly develops a god complex, believing she has the right to control every thought, every action, to puppet her citizens for their own safety. It's a chilling mirror of Bubblegum herself, a reflection of what she could become if she ever fully gave in to her worst instincts. And the scary part? She doesn't seem all that shocked by it. Not really. Because deep down, Bubblegum knows the line she's walking. She knows that being queen of a kingdom full of candy people she designed herself means she has the power to play both savior and tyrant. And sometimes she chooses both. Bubblegum isn't evil, but she's not innocent either. She lives in this strange in-between space, the benevolent ruler who crosses ethical lines, not because she enjoys power, but because she believes only she can protect her kingdom. And that belief? That's dangerous. Take the episode, The Cooler. When the Fire Kingdom's core begins overheating, threatening to destroy everything, Bubblegum steps in, not by asking for permission, not by offering aid, but by secretly installing a cooling system without Flame Princess's knowledge. She literally undermines another sovereign ruler's government in the name of safety. It's not war. It's not sabotage. It's not even an act of aggression. It's bubblegum logic, the kind that says, if I can fix the problem, why waste time with politics or feelings? But here's the thing. She doesn't see herself as a dictator. In her mind, she's the adult in the room, the scientist, the protector. And sure, her people might not always understand her methods, but they'll thank her later, right? Except sometimes they don't. Because over time, even her own creations start to question her. Peppermint Butler, her right-hand man and secret occultist, often works behind her back. Cinnamon Bun literally defects to the Fire Kingdom. Lemon Grab, one of her earlier, more unstable experiments, becomes a symbol of her scientific overreach. He's a creation who wasn't ready, who spiraled into madness and tyranny, and whose suffering is, in many ways, her fault. And then there's Finn and Marceline. Finn sees Bubblegum as brilliant and brave, but also emotionally distant, a bit cold and often unreachable. She rarely lets herself be vulnerable. She hides behind duty and logic. And while Finn matures and begins to see her flaws, he never stops admiring her. Marceline, on the other hand, has known Bubblegum for centuries. Their relationship is deeply personal, romantic, messy, and Marceline is the one person who consistently challenges Bubblegum's control. In Varmints, we see them reconnect after a long fallout, and it's clear that Bubblegum's obsession with the Candy Kingdom has cost her personal relationships. She's so consumed by her responsibilities that she forgets how to just be, to let go, to trust others, to be vulnerable without calculating the consequences. That moment when Marceline calls her out, it's raw, real, and it cuts through all of Bubblegum's sugary polish. Because Marceline isn't just someone from her past. She's a reminder of who Bubblegum used to be before she became a ruler, before she became the scientist queen burdened by the weight of an entire kingdom she built from scratch. And maybe that's what makes Bubblegum so fascinating. She's a character built on contradictions. She's sweet, but dangerous. Kind, but calculating. Empathetic, but emotionally armored. She's not just a ruler. She's the architect of a society, balancing science, politics, love, and legacy. And in a world as chaotic as Ooh, she stands out not because she's magical, but because she isn't. She's just a girl made of bubblegum who decided the best way to protect her world was to control it. But control always comes at a price. In the vault, we learn that even Bubblegum has buried memories. She's lived long enough to have regrets, mistakes, things she'd rather not think about. But the truth has a way of surfacing in ooh, sometimes in dreams, sometimes in rogue candy experiments, and sometimes in the eyes of people you used to love. And here's where it gets existential, the candy people themselves. They're not just one-note joke characters. Under the surface, many of them show signs of deep emotion, self-awareness, and fear. In the thin yellow line, we see banana guards grappling with questions of identity and loyalty. In Skyhooks, we see what happens when candy citizens begin to change, to think independently, to rebel, to dream of something more. Are they sentient? Do they want to live the lives Bubblegum designed for them? And if they don't, do they get a choice? Because if you create life, even adorable, sugary life, do you also own it? Or are you responsible for setting it free? Bubblegum never quite answers that question. And maybe she doesn't know how. Maybe the truth is, she's scared. Scared of what happens if she lets go. Scared of what she becomes if she's not the one in charge. As the series progresses, something begins to shift in Princess Bubblegum. The cracks in her perfectly controlled kingdom start to show not from rebellion or failure, but from growth, from learning, from finally slowly realizing that power without connection is hollow, that love can't be engineered, that safety doesn't always require surveillance. We see this shift most clearly in the cooler and the pajama war, where she begins to step back, to observe, to listen. In Bonnie Bell Bubblegum, we're shown a flashback of her early life when she and Nettie, her jelly-like brother, first emerged into a world still recovering from the chaos of the Mushroom War. There's a moment where we see how lonely she was, how everything she built, the Candy Kingdom, the hierarchy, the rules, grew out of that isolation, out of fear, out of the deep need to make something safe in a world that had already collapsed once. Bubblegum didn't become a ruler because she craved power. She became one because she was scared of what happens when no one is in charge. But by the time the Great Gum War arrives, she's changed. She no longer sees herself as the only one who can fix everything. She begins to trust others, Finn, Marceline, even Peppermint Butler, who's been running around with his own dark magic schemes for centuries. And when Gumball returns her original uncle, and one of the first people she mutated into Candy to stop a rebellion, we get a full circle moment. Here is someone she once silenced, turned into a simple candy man for daring to question her authority. And now he's back, full of resentment, ready to take everything she built. But this time, Bubblegum doesn't immediately default to control. She still fights, sure, but there's more hesitation, more reflection. And ultimately, it's not war that resolves things. It's a dreamscape, a symbolic journey through their memories, their intentions, their deepest motivations. And it ends not with destruction, but with understanding. That moment marks a turning point not just for the Candy Kingdom, but for Bubblegum herself. It's the beginning of a new era where she no longer needs to manipulate every variable, where she starts believing that her people can handle more than she gives them credit for. And through all of this, Marceline is there. Their relationship, once strained by centuries of silence and pride, finally softens. Obsidian shows us the beautiful payoff. Two ancient beings who've made mistakes, hurt each other, and found their way back. Bubblegum finally opens up. She sings. She lets go of control. And in doing so, she finds a love that isn't built in a lab or designed to last, it just is. So what does all of this say about ethics, about leadership, about life? Maybe it tells us that control is never the same as care. That you can't program people to be happy or safe or good. That real connection comes from messiness, from mistakes, from letting people make their own choices, even when it terrifies you. And maybe it says something about forgiveness, about redemption, about how even someone as calculating and seemingly invulnerable as Princess Bubblegum can still learn, still evolve, still be loved not because of her power, but in spite of it. The Candy Kingdom may look like a fairy tale, but under all that sugar, it's a story about how societies are made, about how science and emotion collide, about the moral weight of creation. And Bubblegum? She's not just a princess. She's a philosopher, a bioengineer, a flawed, brilliant woman trying to run a nation, full of talking desserts without losing her soul in the process. And in the end, she finds balance. Not perfect, not easy, but real. Because if Adventure Time teaches us anything, it's that love, trust, and personal growth matter more than kingdoms or crowns. That even the most complicated people can be worthy of grace. That leaders who learn, who listen, are the ones who truly make their worlds better. And that maybe, just maybe, the sweetest things in life aren't the ones you make in a lab. They're the ones you choose to love again and again, even when it's hard. Now let's crank the tone from pink bubblegum dreams to pure cosmic dread. In the colorful chaos of Adventure Time talking dogs, candy people, goofy villains, there's one presence that chills the bones. One force that doesn't joke, doesn't dance, doesn't want anything but total, final, irreversible destruction. The Lich. You can feel the temperature drop whenever he shows up. The air gets still. The music shifts. Time itself seems to flinch. Because the Lich isn't just a villain. He's not here for treasure or power or some elaborate plan. He is evil, not cartoon evil, not mustache-twirling evil, but pure entropy in a cloak of bone and shadow. And what makes him terrifying is that he believes in what he's doing. But before we unravel the Lich's sinister philosophy, let's rewind. Let's go way back to the Mushroom War. The Mushroom War is the apocalyptic event that wiped out the old world and gave rise to the weird, magical landscape of Ooh. And in the chaos of that global catastrophe, something ancient, primal, and deadly was unleashed. The Lich. We're not given an exact origin at first. His early appearances are shrouded in mystery. We just know that he exists to kill, that everything he touches turns to ash, that he speaks in calm, deliberate whispers, never shouting, never losing control like someone absolutely certain of their purpose. His first major appearance in Mortal Folly sets the tone. He's sealed beneath the Candy Kingdom in a magic-locked prison. But even imprisoned, he's dangerous. He doesn't need armies. He doesn't even need his full strength. He just exists, and the world bends around him like light warping near a black hole. When he finally breaks free, it's not through brute force. It's through manipulation, subtle, intelligent, patient. He infects Princess Bubblegum's royal stag, hijacks its mind, and uses it to reach his goal, the well of power. And when Finn and Jake face him, it's not a flashy anime-style showdown. It's dread. It's fear. It's knowing that this thing in front of them doesn't care if they're heroes. It doesn't care about honor or glory. It doesn't care about anything except death. But the Lich isn't just a scary skeleton with green flames. He's an idea. An idea that's been quietly haunting the series from the very beginning, that destruction is natural, that death is the only constant, that life in all its messy, vibrant unpredictability is a mistake that needs correcting. And he makes a compelling argument, not by shouting, but by existing, by showing us what happens when entropy walks and talks and plots. What's especially eerie is how the Lich doesn't gloat. He doesn't monologue like a Saturday morning villain. His words are careful, chilling. Like when he says, "Fall, you are alone, child. There is only darkness for you, and only death for your people. These ancients are just the beginning. I will command a great and terrible army, and we will sail to 1 billion worlds. We will sail until every light has been extinguished." He doesn't want to rule. He wants everything gone. And that's what makes him different. Most villains have wants, desires, weaknesses. The Lich has only a mission: to end all life everywhere, not out of anger, not even out of pain, but because in his twisted philosophy, existence itself is wrong. The Lich's terrifying power doesn't just come from what he can do, it comes from what he represents. He's not chaos for the sake of chaos. He's order in the most brutal, final sense. He believes in the stillness of a dead universe, where nothing changes, nothing hurts, and nothing lives. It's a grim kind of peace, one where no suffering exists, because there's no one left to suffer. And that's where the real philosophical nightmare kicks in. Because how do you defeat something that doesn't want anything? You can't tempt him, you can't trick him with emotion, and you definitely can't reason with him. The Lich sees everything, love, joy, friendship, even morality, as temporary distractions. To him, life is just a flash before the inevitable collapse. He doesn't hate you. He just doesn't think you matter. But even evil like that doesn't go unchecked in ooh. The Lich is powerful, terrifyingly so, but he's not unstoppable. And one of the most unexpected weapons against him is Finn's soul. That sounds dramatic, but it's true. Finn's relentless optimism, his hope, his belief in people, these are the things that allow him to resist the Lich's influence, time and time again. When others fall, Finn fights. And he doesn't just punch evil in the face. He challenges its very existence with compassion. In the Lich episode, Finn and Jake get lured into a cosmic trap. The Lich, disguised as Billy, a beloved hero corrupted from within, tricks them into helping him open a multiverse portal using the Enchiridion. It's a flawless plan until Finn sees through it, until he chooses to believe in something deeper than fear. But that plan still succeeds just long enough for the Lich to enter a different dimension and be pulled into the farm world timeline. And this is where things get even weirder. In Farm World, an alternate reality where Simon never became the Ice King and the Mushroom War never happened, the Lich's essence doesn't disappear. It waits. It finds new roots. And it infects that timeline in its own quiet way, proving again that no matter where you go, death follows. Eventually, he reemerges in another unexpected form, Sweet Pea. This twist? Genius. After Finn and Jake wish for the Lich to be stopped, he's reborn not as a ghost, not as a demon, but as a baby. A large, adorably innocent baby with no memory of his cosmic purpose. He becomes part of Tree Trunks and Mr. Pig's family. His name is Sweet Pea, and he's just a kid. A kind, quiet, loving child. But every so often, the Lich's voice creeps out. You hear it echo in the back of Sweet Pea's mind, whispering dark things, calling him to return to his true nature, telling him that love is a lie and peace is weakness. And yet, again and again, Sweet Pea resists. He dreams of monsters. He feels something ancient inside him. But he fights it. Not with magic, not with strength, but with goodness. He draws pictures of himself as a hero. He makes friends. He chooses kindness. And that's when Adventure Time flips the script. It says that maybe evil isn't always final. That maybe, just maybe, even something born to destroy can become something that protects. It's a radical idea, and it goes completely against the Lich's entire belief system. If life can choose love over annihilation, if a creature like Sweet Pea can reject his dark destiny, then maybe destruction isn't inevitable. Maybe we aren't doomed to entropy. But the Lich doesn't stop trying. In Whispers, he returns again, or at least a piece of him does. He tries to reawaken inside Sweet Pea, to reclaim control. And what happens? Sweet Pea stands tall. He literally says, "I am not the Lich. I am Sweet Pea." And he slams that evil down like a door being shut forever. It's not just a character moment. It's a statement. Evil can whisper. It can wait. It can come back again and again. but it doesn't have to win. Not when people are brave enough to say no. The Lich's defeat by Sweet Pea wasn't just a win for the forces of good, it was a cosmic contradiction to everything the Lich stood for. A child, once destined to end all things, chose love, family, and peace. It's the ultimate rejection of nihilism. And not just with fists with identity. Sweet Pea doesn't destroy the Lich with a weapon. He redefines himself. But evil, like the Lich, doesn't just vanish, not really. That's one of the show's darker truths. Entropy doesn't die. It waits, it lurks, it adapts. And that brings us to one of the most fascinating things about the Lich. Even when he's gone, his idea lingers. Think about it. How many other villains in Adventure Time are driven by fear of decay? How many systems, like Bubblegum's Candy Kingdom or the Ice King's crown, exist as overreactions to chaos and loss? Even characters like Betty, who eventually becomes the new host of Galb, a being that represents pure chaos, wrestle with the same fundamental question the Lich poses. Is it better to accept the unpredictable messiness of life, or erase it altogether? The Lich's core philosophy that the universe is better off silent hangs over the entire series like a cold wind. Even when he's not on screen, you feel his presence in the emotional battles, in the fear of loss, in the tension between control and surrender. And this is where Adventure Time gets really bold, because it doesn't just beat the Lich and move on. It asks a deeper question. What if he's not entirely wrong? Life is messy. People suffer. Things fall apart. Empires crumble. Even Finn, the pure-hearted hero, faces heartbreak, failure, and the weight of moral ambiguity. There are moments where it seems like maybe the Lich has a point. Maybe all this pain and conflict isn't worth it. But that's where the show digs in its heels. Because Adventure Time doesn't fight evil with perfection. It fights evil with resilience, with laughter, with music, with people trying, failing, and trying again. The Lich, for all his power, cannot comprehend that kind of strength. To him, resistance is irrational. Love is weakness. But over and over again, Finn and his friends prove otherwise. They don't just survive him. They transform the battle into something deeper. They remind us that the point of life isn't to avoid pain, it's to grow through it, to build connection in the chaos. There's an especially haunting moment in Together Again, the distant future episode where Finn dies and journeys through the dead worlds. The Lich returns not as a cosmic threat, but as a pitiful, withered husk. He's still whispering the same tired promises of silence and stillness, but he's alone, forgotten, weak. The multiverse moved on without him. Finn barely acknowledges him. That silence says everything. The Lich isn't terrifying anymore because his philosophy lost, not by war, not by magic, but by the quiet persistence of life continuing, laughing, healing, existing. In the end, the Lich becomes a shadow, a relic of an idea that the universe rejected, and not by defeating him with a bigger spell or sword, but by choosing to live anyway. And that's the real message of this segment. Evil isn't always fire and brimstone. Sometimes it's a whisper in your mind saying, give up. It's all meaningless. Nothing matters. But Adventure Time, with all its candy people and magical dogs and weird cosmic gods, answers back. It says, maybe it's messy. Maybe it hurts. But that's what makes it beautiful. The Lich teaches us that true evil isn't about hate. It's about apathy, the absence of connection, the denial of hope. But as long as there are people who reach for one another, even in the darkest times, evil can never fully win. So yeah, the Lich might be eternal, but so is love. And in the land of love wins. And just like that, our journey through the deep, mysterious, and sometimes heartbreaking corners of Adventure Time comes to a close for now. From the swirling dreams of a boy with a golden heart to the sorrowful ballads of a vampire queen and a broken man with a crown, from candy kingdoms built on moral questions to a skeletal whisper that wanted to end all things, we've seen that the land of Ooh is so much more than bright colors and goofy catchphrases. It's a place where philosophy meets fantasy, where ancient wars and cosmic truths hide behind talking bananas and musical numbers, and where the lines between hero and villain, good and evil, life and death, are as wobbly and unpredictable as a Jake the Dog transformation. But if there's one thing Adventure Time teaches us, it's this: that no matter how weird or dark or complicated life becomes, there's always a light in the darkness, always a friend who'll stick by you, always a new day to try again. And that matters. That really matters, especially when the world feels like it's been flipped upside down and inside out. Because in the end, whether you're a human boy trying to find your place, a vampire trying to heal, a candy queen balancing science and emotion, or even a literal force of destruction like the Lich, you're still part of something bigger, a story, a journey, a universe that's messy, magical, and completely alive. So if you've made it this far, eyes getting heavier, thoughts swirling softly, thank you for traveling with us. Here at Sleepy Lore, we dive deep, not just for the fun of it, but because these stories stay with us. They whisper to us long after the credits roll, and in the quiet hours when the world winds down and your mind is still awake, it's nice to have a place to rest, a story to sink into, a familiar voice in the dark. If this kind of storytelling speaks to you, if you love drifting off to quiet adventures, deep lore, and cosmic reflections, we'd love for you to join us. Go ahead and tap that like button to let us know you're vibing with the journey. And if you want more slow-burning, cozy deep dives into the world you love, don't forget to subscribe to Sleepy Lore and turn on notifications. We got so many more stories to tell from Ooh and beyond. Until then, may your dreams be full of magic, your thoughts soft and quiet, and your soul wrapped in the cozy weirdness of Adventure Time. Good night.